Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. This is not a health how-to, but rather a conversation with some amazing people I've had the pleasure of being with on my journey of life. Think of it more like Tuesdays with Maury, a fireside chat, or chicken soup for the soul. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this conversation with a chiropractor. Today on Conversations with a Chiropractor, I'm joined by my mother-in-law, Alice Bradley. Alice was born in Chicago, Illinois in the year
1942.
And tell me what it was like to be in the city of Chicago growing up.
Well, when I can probably remember back to 5 or 6 years old, maybe even a little beyond that, but there's not much to talk about beyond that. But I do remember some specific incidences, like when I had to have my tonsils taken out. I even remember the doctor that did it. His name was Dr. Cardo. And I had to have it done at Chicago Memorial in Cook County, Chicago, Illinois.
And you had to go there by streetcar?
By streetcar. We didn't own a vehicle back. As a matter of fact, my dad was just getting out of the Army, and we didn't have a car or anything like that. And my mom had to take me to the hospital on a streetcar. And to top it all, I was motion sickness. So my mom had to get 2-3 different transfers on the cable streetcar so that I wouldn't vomit on the streetcar. So that was an ordeal. Then I remember being at the hospital, and I remember being blindfolded and laid on a gurney. Before I knew it, I'm being told to just lay down on this gurney. All of a sudden, I felt something wet run all over my face, only to learn that it was ether that put me to sleep.
Wow. I mean, that was like what they had back then. That was all they had, right?
As far as I knew.
So your dad was stationed overseas?
At that time, yes.
And he was in the Army?
Yes. He was a tanker. He fought under Eisenhower. Eisenhower was our president back then.
Did he?
No, he was not our president back then. He was my father's journal. Excuse me. It's a little far back in history, but I'm doing the best I can to remember.
You're doing a great job, Alice. So tell me what it was like. Living in Chicago, you were the oldest?
Yes.
3?
Yes. I was 5 years older than my sister and 14 years older than my brother.
Now, did your mom work outside the home?
Yes. She worked outside the home from the time I was born. She always worked. I never remember my mother not holding a job outside the home.
Was there anybody else that lived with you guys that helped to take care of you?
My grandpa, my mother's father, my Uncle Bob. Families stayed together back then. We were all together. I mean, if you had a brother or a sister that wasn't married or a grandparent, they lived with you. So at least our family did.
Can you tell me everybody's name? So your mom was Evelyn.
Evelyn Veronica Wildenheim was her maiden name. Miller was her married name, but Evelyn Veronica Wildenheim was her maiden name. And my father is Charles Edward Miller, and my Uncle Bob was Robert Wildenheim, and my grandpa was, I'm not sure, I only called him Grandpa, so I don't really, I remember my grandpa's name was Comrade Wildenheim. That's what his name was.
It's cool to kind of go back down memory lane and try to pull things.
Yeah. I don't know why I almost forgot that when I almost named Gary Conrad.
Did you?
Yeah, at one point I thought about it. But then after I thought about it, and he turned out to be a boy, just what I wanted. And his dad wanted a boy, so he got his dad's name Gary, but not a junior. I wouldn't have a junior.
So his middle name, their middle names are different, right? Tell me a little bit about what it was like to go to school. Did you walk to school?
Every day, twice a day. Walked to school in the morning, went home, had to guide my sister. I was very young, but I always babysat my sister and my brother when he came along. I would take my sister home for lunch, make lunch, and get her back to school and myself after lunch, and then after school, walk her home and me home again, and then stay there and do what I had to do till my parents got home.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Definitely, I had it from the time I was probably in second or third grade.
Now, I know a little bit about your mom worked for Baxter, which was like a medical supply company, right?
Yes.
And what did your dad do?
My father, when he first got out of the Army, he worked different jobs with his brother, my Uncle Herman, who they opened a chili house in Chicago called Ole's. My husband can probably tell you about that place because a place he worked for back then. They used to go there for lunch.
No kidding.
Yeah. They'd go there and to Ole's and get a bunch of chili in cartons. And I said to him, God, my father and my uncle owned that place. Unreal. It's a small world when it gets down to it. Anyway, my dad did a lot of different things before he ended up at Dole Valve. And then Dole Valve back in, let's see, it would be the late 50s. No, the 60s. Dole Valve moved to California. And my parents were not going to move to California. They had just built and bought their new house in the suburbs. So that's when my mom ended up working at Baxter's. My father never worked at Baxter's. My mom ended up at Baxter's. And yeah, that is a medical supply factory.
So the unfortunate thing is that your dad died quite young.
Quite
right?
young.
He had a massive heart attack.
Yes, he did.
How old were you? Do you remember?
Just let me think a minute.
Okay.
I was 29 years old when my father passed away.
So you were out of the house by then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I had 4 children by then.
Wow. Well, let's backtrack. So when you guys moved from being downtown Chicago to the suburbs,
It
how
wasn't downtown. We were located on the north side around Humboldt Park area, which was considered not downtown. Downtown was the Loop and all that.
Yeah.
I
Now,
started working downtown for
when
quite
you
a
were
while
still in high school or after high school?
after high school.
Okay.
I started working down there when I was almost 18. Just about 18, I graduated. And I had the job. I was working for a place called Photo Ideas. And then I was working for Elizabeth Hardin's on the Gold Coast. So I had held those jobs for a couple of years. And then I was making some commissions off of portrait work that I had done, had that hung in Elizabeth Hardin's. Anyway.
Your portraits.
Yeah.
Like
was,
portraits of you.
Yeah, with makeup, with their makeup.
Wow. And that's what started you modeling.
And then I was doing runway modeling, conventional modeling, actually. where you just are bringing out the new cars of the year and new boats and new bikes and new everything, you know. You to learn about it, you talk about it, you sell it.
And this was in like a
Chicago,
yeah.
McCormick Place, all that area. I worked for quite a while.
So we're going to go back to Chicago. So by the time you're working as a model, you're living up in Fox Lake and you take the train downtown.
Yes, ma'am.
The train that we know as the L?
Union Station. I take the L, the train. The train. Yeah, I guess you could call it an L if you wanted. When by the time you got down to Chicago, you're riding on L tracks. So I don't know. I'd call it the train. Down to Union Station.
Wow.
All the way mid Chicago, and get off the Union Station, go all the way up to the level land, and walk down. I forget the name of it. Skid Row, actually. And you'd be surprised. If you took the trip, you'd know why they called it Skid Row. There's nothing but bars and men and women. Women sitting in big storeroom windows advertising themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. And people with no beds or half-dressed and laying in doorways, just drunk as could be. I used to walk after I got off the train and went up to the streets. I used to walk like 3 blocks to get to photo ideas down these passageways. I couldn't believe I did that after I did it, but I did it.
Sounds very dangerous.
It was, I guess, but I never thought of it that way. I thought, what are these people that are going to harm me?
That was probably a pretty prestigious job to have, wasn't it?
It was. It paid well, put it that way. You know, at the time, and the kind of money I was making, it was very, very good. Very, very good. So for one day's work, depending on if they had to do full makeup or depending on what they had to do that day, it would depend on my wages.
Okay.
But I'd never walk out of there with less than $500 a day. And that was just for maybe 5 hours of work. And then I wouldn't work for 3, 4, 5 days. But then when I did, it was a good payday. It wasn't like I was making $2 an hour, you know.
And this
So,
is what, the 60s, 70s?
This is in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. So early 70s at that time.
That was a good gig.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, did you have your 4 kids already?
Yep.
You already had the 4 kids.
Yep, I did. And I also was doing some work for another place called Photo Ideas in between working for Elizabeth Arden.
So you love to cook Italian food, but you're
Yeah.
really Italian.
No, not at all.
Where did you learn to cook Italian food?
I have an uncle that's Italian. His name is Chicky. He's not a true Italian. I mean, a true uncle, but he's true Italian. My Uncle Chicky married my mother's good friend, Barbara, and Barbara learned everything from my Uncle Chicky, and she's Polish. So my Uncle Chicky, that's Italian, married my Auntie Barb, who's Polish, who ended up being a superb Italian cook that taught my mother everything she knew, and therefore I learned from my mother. I love the way I make Italian food nowadays compared to any others I've eaten thus far. But it wasn't my recipe, it was somebody else's. That's how I learned to do it. And then I had lived a little bit, but the more I had lived, if I see someone put X amount of this or that in it, and I really liked the way that tasted, I might add a little more to make it even better. And I always did that. So it ended up, I got to be a pretty darn good Italian cook. There's not much I can't make that's Italian.
Because what city is Wildenheim?
German.
Okay. Did you have any?
It's,
Did you make German?
well, cabbage, potatoes, kielbasa. That's a lot of German stuff.
Yeah.
Smoked butt, stuff like that. I cook all that stuff. All of it.
Were there any sort of family traditions growing up in your?
Yes. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. And they all were traditions because for Easter, it wouldn't be Easter without my mother's famous lamb cakes. Grandma made lamb cakes for everybody. And she did a better job than any bakery you could buy one from. And they were so good. And all right, that was a tradition. And the way she would fix baskets was another tradition. Nobody could do it prettier or better than her. Yeah, I'm too bad you weren't around to know my mother better. And you would have loved her.
You know, it's interesting. So she worked the whole while you were growing up. Did you feel mad at her for that?
Not mad, but I missed her. I have to say I did miss a lot of it, but like just say Christmas, for instance, and I'd be coming home from school, and generally she'd always be gone. But if I seen my mother was home and it was like a week before Christmas, I'd know immediately we're going downtown, her and me. And I remember my first nylon stockings she bought me. The first ones were to go Christmas shopping with her this one night. I come home from school and all my dress and these nylon stockings and these backless shoes were laying on the bed. She bought me to go Christmas shopping.
Wow.
That was my first nylon stockings. Felt like a big deal that night.
I bet. And I think that this sort of goes to show the specialness of that night.
Right, because she could afford to do those things. It's like she told me, if she didn't work, she couldn't do those things for me. So which would you rather have? She would say.
That's what she would say. Which would you rather have?
Yeah. And then again, I can't have both. So you know what I picked. And then we're talking traditions, but it just reminded me of that, which is part of a tradition because if it wasn't for her working, we wouldn't have had the kind of Christmases we had. And my father, every Christmas, the week before, our whole house was covered with raviolis drying out because my father made homemade raviolis from scratch, the dough, everything, the cheese, everything. Our whole apartment had white sheets thrown all over everything, and so that these little pastries could be laid upon it, drying out all over the house. I kid you not.
I believe it.
And then my mother's sauce would be cooking away. That spaghetti was a tradition. Raviolis.
For Christmas.
Christmas. That's a tradition.
Would you be getting more presents than your friends from school?
Always.
So you were pretty wealthy.
And I guess you would call it. We were just, I guess you'd say wealthy.
or upper middle class?
Upper middle class.
How long did your dad's chili business stay?
Oh, till he went to work for Dole. A couple years.
Okay. It sounds like he was a really good cook, though.
Him and my Uncle Herman. Ask Jack. Ask Jack how he liked Ole's chili
Okay.
when he's around.
I will. So my husband actually wasn't born when you were a model in Chicago. He's one of the original 4 children.
Oh, that's right. No, he wasn't there yet. Not originally, no.
He's
Born in 70.
he's one of the 2 extras.
Right. Well, I don't know what I'm thinking. He was born in 70.
Yeah. So you met Gary and Sean's dad when you were a model. He was in the Air Force, and you guys met downtown Chicago.
Gary, I was just working then downtown when I met Gary.
Okay.
Gary was born in 70, and Gary and I were married in 67.
That must have been it.
Well, we were married 7 years.
Well, let's go back to some traditions. So your children with Gary are Sean and Gary, not Junior, but Gary. What traditions did you bring to your children from your childhood?
Because I had all of them, I had not only Sean and Gary, I had my other children also. So they were used to the things that a lot of the things. Every Christmas Eve, they all got new pajamas. That was one that I always did. Even
That they would wear that night?
Yeah, they would get them Christmas Eve.
Okay.
So that when they woke up, they'd have new jammies on.
Hmm.
And of course, the Christmas meal, I always tried to keep that Italian, but on the side, I'd make either a turkey or a ham, because if Gary's family came, maybe they didn't all like Italian food. They were more into the farmland stuff, kill a bird and eat it.
I mean, this is pretty foreign to you, right? This farming stuff? I mean, you're a city girl.
Oh, yeah. It was very foreign, but I kind of enjoyed it. The kids were having a ball. My oldest one, they loved it. Renee and Rhonda, they loved it. They were up with the farm kids, Gary's brothers and sisters, out in the barn, milking cows, and they were loving it. And then when Shawnee came along, by then, when I first met Gary, they didn't even have trench cleaners. They did it all by hand. That's we're talking a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's why I can't remember. I don't have Alzheimer.
I know. It is a lot to ask someone to recall all these things.
Oh, God, and get the right dates on them. If I sat down with a pencil and a paper, I could get it right. But bam, 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 takes a little figuring out.
It does.
I remember my mom was in the bathroom. She was doing something there. I don't know exactly. Oh, I know she was putting rollers in her hair. And I remember the bathroom had a step up to get into the bathroom. And I remember sitting on that step, and my mother said to me, "What is it that you really want for your birthday?" And I'm thinking, and I said, "A television set," because we didn't have a television yet.
In the whole house?
No, nowhere. No, nowhere. They were pretty new. So, and she goes, "No, it's something you really want." And I'm like, I must have named a dozen things. And finally she says to me, we're going to have a little baby. And I was like, when? You know, I guess she had just found out and was about 3 months. And I was like, when, you know? And then she told me when. She said, not for a while. And she started explaining a little bit of when.
So, Alice, we talked a little bit about like big, heavy things. Like if you had to leave a piece of advice to your grandkids and their grandkids, what would it be?
Well, I think working hard to meet the goals you've set for yourself is a very important thing in a person's life, because nothing comes to you without working really hard for it. So set your goals and don't give up. If you meet one goal, shoot for another. It's there's never too much out there to learn. That would be what I would suggest to everybody, not just my grandkids, but everybody. Concentrate on what's important to you and shoot for it. Don't let anybody tell you that you're gonna achieve anything any other way. You gotta work hard.
That's a super great piece of advice. Work hard. What else would you tell people, any of our listeners, like a little nugget of wisdom?
I've always tend to look at people that I first meet or whatever and look for the good in a person. I never really try to look at a person and find everything that's not good about a person. Looking for what's good in a person is the best way to meet someone. You're never gonna achieve friendships or whatever if you're always looking for the bad. You have to look for the good in everything you do. It helps.
And you talked a little bit about how you want to express that you love someone, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you have feelings for a human being, you should let them know. It's important to each and every one of us how another person feels about our being, especially in families. Do we care about each other? You should tell a person. Don't just hold it inside. People can't read your mind. You have to let people know, either by word or action or whatever, but do something. Do what you say. Don't just say it and not do it. That's something that I find a lot of people do. They say things and they never do them. So that talk comes cheap, but you have to do what you say.
Yeah. I love that. Beautiful advice from a wise woman.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, like, or subscribe? You can find me on social media at wautierwellness.com, Dr. Stephanie Wautier on Instagram, or Wautier Wellness Chiropractic and Massage on Facebook. And I'm so curious where your next conversation will take you.